Hello and welcome again. This week we are going to be discussing Project Looking Glass. The Looking Glass project is the third part of the video series that I've done this month. The first video was on the Philadelphia experiment. The second video was on the Montauk Project, and this will kind of bring them all three together. And this is Project Looking Glass. So, through the looking glass we go and into Project Looking Glass. The looking glass device or program is a type of technology possibly discovered in the old world. It is a consciousness amplification device used to see and predict possible future events. Now, when certain markers in time are followed, a desired outcome could be achieved. This would be in the form of, playing the stock market to become rich, or sports betting, or making connections to certain people, or whatever it would be to put you in the right place in the right time for any number of reasons. And this connects to temporal events. And this looking glass is a type of technology that can see these temporal events and calculate ways to avoid them or to make them a part of reality and happen. Now, this is good way to understand this is the doctrine of convergent timeline paradox is the point of reference that you're at. And this is the point of the looking glass observation and the flow of time, and then creating specific markers that you know to steer events in a specific direction. So this is just like the sports almanac from the Back to the Future. You have these lists of temporal events in the sports almanac, and you can then use them to your own benefit to get the required outcome that you are looking for. So the looking glass device was being used by the deep state to predict the events needed to achieve the New World Order. This device was decommissioned or its use was discontinued after the year 2012. So when they started these programs after or during World War II with Operation Paperclip, they then brought all this research over and were using this device up until the year 2012, where the outcomes could not be changed any longer and the timeline was fully set. So then they stopped using it. Now, for an unknown reason, the results would only show after 2012 the defeat of the New World Order, and no events could change this outcome, so it was no longer used. Now, this would mean that no event can stop the fall of these controllers. However, this information should be taken lightly or possibly be a type of false information to keep the people from rising up or even joining together in the name of Jesus Christ. And that's an important component to all this stuff because it's a satanic type of inversion of them using this technology in order to destroy the true descendants and the true chosen people of God, and an inversion so that when all of the white skinned people are gone, these white skinned Jews are the ones left. And some people say this is this is what they believe, these New World Order people. And they are the first ones to tell you that they are the chosen people of God, and they are the ones continuously just doing the most satanic and evil things you could think about. And there is a extremely important reason why this is, if you followed any of my past work. So it's very interesting where the facts lead, and a lot of people don't want to face this because there are racial components, there are cultural components, but the facts are the facts that they are pushing forward, and there is a large connection there. So recently, I have heard that this looking glass device was back being operational, and revealed even more secrets. Now, however, this new data uncovered would be top secret and no further results would be shown after 2024. So, likely the Trump team most likely has control of this device and are using it to steer our reality into a place where they want it to be. Now, this could be the assassination attempts that Trump survives, or how he's always one step ahead of all these deep state people. But it's very interesting when you understand that this technology exists, it is widely known, and if one nation could build one of these, multiple nations could have them by now, and they could all be using them to gain the desired outcome that they're seeking. So it's very interesting when understanding this. So the looking glass program and device would yield multiple outcomes depending on the observer or observers. Now, the black hats would use this device and it would all reveal the same results of death and devastation after the year 2012. And this connects to the 40-year biorhythms of the planet, where they were doing this Philadelphia experiment, and then 20, 40 years later they're doing this Montauk experiment, and then 20, 40 years later would be around when these devices were no longer operable because the timeline was locked in, I guess you could think of it. So the white hats would use this device and different results would be shown. So depending on the type of person using it, different outcomes would be witnessed. And that has to do with the the people in charge of the new world order knowing that the game was up and there's nothing they could do to change the future that is coming towards us. So we have to assume that each consciousness would reveal different outcomes and results. We can also theorize that the Trump team has a connection to time travel and this looking glass observation machine, the device or the looking glass device. So avoiding assassinations, always being one step ahead of the deep state. Why? It directly connects to the service to self or service to others, which is a universal component to how consciousness operates within our realm. And now that you could say that has a connection to karma and the energy you're carrying with you when you're looking at these devices and things like that. So here you can see this is what this looking glass device looks like. It is a centralized unit. And then you can see by these two blue arrows, there are two jump pads which would transport a person from one reality to another depending on how they're using this machine or depending on also who is using it. So there's a difference between evil consciousness and righteous or good consciousness operating this device. And it's very interesting. Um, kind of how all this is culminating towards this massive world changing event that's on the horizon. Whether that's full devastation from World War III, the disclosure of Hollywood and all this Pizzagate and celebrities and the Israel and all this kind of stuff, everything is culminating towards this final event where people are going to have to choose one way or the other. And that would also kind of explain how some of us, there is no future for these people, while others, it is a wide open range of new things on the horizon with technologies and financial freedoms and all these different things that are culminating as of the year 2024 that we're in and is almost over. So 2024 is the year of revealing. And something with this, the next picture here is this US debt clock that has been putting out these subliminal messages. And this looks like a pressure cooker, but it also kind of looks like this. looking glass device. And that's one of the ways they are using this to defeat these evil New World Order people, is understanding that the freedom comes with the financial freedom and using the asset backed currency, in which most people have assets that they could base their money on, not just the debt or the slavery of them working in X, Y, and Z. So there's lots of subliminal things. I've seen another couple of these debt clock messages that have like a looking glass kind of theme to them, I guess you could say. So it's something extra I thought I'd throw in there. So, the number one biblical threat that these satanic individuals fear is a reuniting of the old world and a rebuilding of the Tartarian Empire, which was a Christian kingdom. Now, all evidence of Tartaria and this mud flood was concealed and hidden from the people. Now, if this secret was rediscovered, showing the people what these controllers were capable of, and what they were capable of, they could organize against them, the people. We could all see that if you took away free energy from these buildings and you returned it to people, you wouldn't be able to control them as easy. If you took away the hoarding of assets and money and the Federal Reserve and stuff, people would have more financial freedom. They wouldn't have to work as hard, and they could then channel their energy towards a more positive service to others type of goal, where society is now directly engineered so that each person has to be a service to self type of idea, where you're constantly having to work and hoard your money and save and really pit one person against another in a way of as a way of controlling them, because that all leads to fear and fear leads to the control. So if they were responsible for the dividing and conquering and the erasing all traces of this old world and the Tartarian Empire, we could be next. So by knowing the hidden history, a vast amount of evidence can be found and the truth can be restored. Where if you're not aware of any of this stuff, they could completely wipe you out, and it would be like the entire races or populations of people would have never existed. They could place your entire race of people 1,000 years in the past, 100 years in the past, and it's just they could add more time to the timeline, which pushes our events back, and then they can then rewrite history for a second or third time. And whatever version of reality they wanted would be what they would teach the younger generations. Or there is a cloning component to this where they could clone an entire new race of people and teach them whatever version of reality they wanted. And no one would be aware of any of this kind of stuff because these ideas would just be deleted from the universal consciousness of the people. So this device would get going. It was liquid cooled argon spin, pumped in a circle very quickly, and this machine would rotate, kind of like in the movie Contact. They had a giant machine that was like some kind of a dimensional device. I don't know if you remember that movie. Maybe I'll pop a picture of that device after this one. But this would cause some kind of an event, and then images would be shown, and then they would record these images and see what they would need to do to change, A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z, whatever they would need to change to get the desired outcome that they wanted. And it would be a machine of like probabilities. Like if you the probability of you doing one, two, and three would change if you did two, three first, and then it's a way of doing these multiple experiments. And now they're kind of using these machines with quantum computers to figure out how and why, or how you could affect the future doing possible outcomes today. If that kind of makes sense. It's kind of hard to explain because we are dealing with multiple timelines here. So in one reality, it could be this, and in another reality, it's that. but we're getting to the point where they're going to be forced back into one thing, and that will be the temporal event needed to push events forward and letting us to get out of this cycle where everything just keeps repeating. So multiple outcomes shown to the observer would also provide evidence of multiple dimensions and alternate realities. Because of this, changing an event within a timeline may impact other timelines. This may also indicate that ancient Aztecs may also have possessed similar devices, showing them the same type of outcomes that the controllers now faced. And this would account for the December 21st, 2012 date of the end of the world, where their world is over and nothing can be changed up to this point. And this is why they're so concerned about going back in time and changing things. This is all kind of like the Back to the Future paradox, where you go into the past to change things in the future and things like that. But more and more it looks as if there's nothing can stop what's coming. Is a way of saying it, and the future is going to be unfolded or uncovered the way that it should be. Now, this could have been because of changes made in the past, changes made to the future, allowing certain inventions and technologies to come out in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and now, which will then be a massive part of the future civilization to come, if that kind of describes it, or if you can kind of see it like that. So their world is over, and they will not be able to feed off or harvest us any longer. Now, another event is the 2045 date, where that is supposedly when this transcendence takes place, and people will either merge with machines, causing this massive fractal event where half of the people, plug themselves into the matrix, and the other half of the people start getting away from technology and connecting more to, earth and community and God and things like that. So this 2045 date, when all evil is cleansed and the black goo is no longer a threat to mankind, and we are then um, possibly the firmament is lifted and we are able to reconnect with the heavenly realms, the higher dimensions, the hidden lands, and things like that. And it's like we're quarantined now within our realm with the firmament above us because we've got this evil that we have to defeat. And it's like the only people who could do this are the true chosen people of God, defeating this true chosen people of evil or Satan. And only one group will be left to inherit this great kingdom and this Garden of Eden. And we can then turn, Earth realm into a paradise and kind of rebuild what the old world had. So this is the looking glass device again. We've seen this a few times, but it's very interesting. There's multiple people who have seen this device and seen it work. And this is I think this is like an AI generated thing. This isn't a real picture, but this is most likely what people describe when they see this device working and things like that. So, as we catch on to the plans of the New World Order and the controllers, they lose power and control, and they are easier to defeat. So, the Great Awakening of humanity through information, knowledge, and wisdom. The informational war is happening, and knowledge is power. The conspiracy theorists or truth seekers are the ones who will defeat the Zionist New World Order enemies by informing the masses and awakening the human consciousness or individual's consciousness. Consciousness awakened will raise the vibration of our realm, and we will then be able to regain our standing, freeing the entirety of our realm or world. And this could be a type of like a 100 monkey theory, when you have a specific amount of consciousness that are awakened to these new ideas and possibilities, there is more room for more creative thought or expression, which then it's like a vibration that keeps getting larger and larger and larger, or like a bell ringing. And the more you ring the bell, the longer the sound waves carry, and more people are awakened. So it's really exciting knowing that this election is over and seeing the result of these people shaving their heads and just completely going insane. It's like the hive mind collective of these liberal satanic people is driving them mad, and they can't vibrate to the higher levels, and they're just breaking down everywhere. And we see it more and more and more coming up to this suicide weekend where these people, they tell all their followers they need to commit suicide to defeat Trump and blah, 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 blah. Whatever it is, it's just the same kind of cultish behavior where they need a massive sacrifice of people in order to birth their Messiah, which is this artificial intelligence. It is the Satan. It is the Black Goo Collective. It is however you want to picture it. But we're coming to this final days where when the evil is fully shown to the people and it's hiding out right in the open, and then now it's no longer hiding, it will then be defeated. But it's almost like you have to see this evil for yourself and then defeat it. When it's hiding behind the scenes and hiding in plain sight, it's still hidden. Where today it's no longer hidden, and you can see this for what it is. And these people have no clue they're a part of this evil. They all trust the science and all this science, and they all love Israel and science, and it's just everything connects when you are understanding who's doing this, how long this has been going on. You understand the old world and the connections. You understand what these wars truly are, how they're all a cover story for the something else, which is the concealment and hiding of the old world. You understand this Operation Paperclip and these Nazis, which are these national Zionists. You understand the Freemason component to all this, and everything starts to make a lot more sense where 5, 10 years ago, we couldn't see these connections. There was too many pieces that were still hidden. Where once you understand the mud flood, the mud fossils, the Tartaria, the flat earth aspect to all this, the understanding God's creation, the understanding of the Christ consciousness and the service to self versus the service to others, and all how these all things play a part in the reality that we see playing out before our eyes, it makes a lot more sense. Everything makes a lot more sense, and we can also see how the future is something is correcting itself, whether that's through people's minds and consciousness or just through people becoming more aware because we have more access to technology and information. But there is a large vibration occurring that is waking up people at an exponential rate, and it's a really exciting thing to be a part of. So here is this looking glass device. There were 5 concurrent programs were also being conducted during this Alice in Wonderland project. There's a big connection to this looking glass device and going down the rabbit hole and the connections to Alice in Wonderland. How it's like a multi-dimensional type of trip or experience when you start getting into these time um, experiments and things like that. So there were multiple other projects connecting with this, and a lot of this connected to old world devices, and they'll claim it had to do with the Roswell crash, but most likely they were finding these crash sites and also digging up these types of technologies from the old world, which would have been buried under the mud flood. And there are lots of connections to these UFOs, whether they're unidentified flying objects or unearthed foreign objects, which would have been highly advanced technology that was buried just under the mud when this mud flood event happened, whenever it did take place. So, this Alice in Wonderland projects were like the giant uh, subcategory, and there was this project Galileo, which was focusing on ET craft propulsion and propulsion systems. There was Project Aquarius, which was a weapons program. Project Sidekick was also a different weapons program, one based on ground based weapons, and the other was on mounted applications connecting to ships and stuff. And that could have been where the direct energy weapons get their start and things like that. And then finally, the Project Looking Glass, which dealt with time distortions and temporal effects, seeing how one event affects another. And you would see these events on this looking glass device, and then you could then go back in time or whatever and make the changes you need, and they were just constantly doing these types of experiments. So, along with this Project Looking Glass device was a type of trip chair used to observe the events of another being's reality or another observer. Now, this chair was supposedly extraterrestrial technology, similar to the Montauk chair, which we discussed in the Montauk Project video of last week. Possibly it was recovered from the Roswell crash in 1947 or another downed ET vehicle. It may be of a similar design, it may be the same chair, but it is rumored that multiple devices have been recovered from multiple crash sites. So, this looking glass trip chair could be used to gather information and observe other people's realities without being able to change the events of a person's life. So, you could observe another person's consciousness doing any number of important things, and then you could either use another type of device to alter those things or change specific events within the timeline. Now, this is this Montauk chair or the looking glass trip chair, and these whistleblowers and people who disclose this information say it is very similar to this total recall chair seen here. And this is where they kind of hide this stuff in plain sight and push the disclosure of these things, changing reality, changing um the Douglas Quaid into the other guy, Hauser. Now he's Hauser, not Quaid. You can alter dimensional effects by using these type of temporal machines, which change specific things within a person's reality. And also other people could change specific things within their reality, and consequences your reality gets changed, and you're like in the movie He's Off, because at first he's a construction worker and then he's a secret agent. And it's really interesting how all these things kind of connect when you understand what these scientists are supposedly doing with these top secret fringe type technologies and experiments. Okay, next, this could be to gather factual accounts of events to make corrections to your reality. And would be like an example is like Doc Brown in the movie when he is shot and killed by the Libyans at the beginning of Back to the Future. And then Marty tells him to wear the bulletproof vest, where then he's shot again, but he's wearing the bulletproof vest and he survives. So it's multiple things going on at once. Once time is altered, the timeline splits or is fractured, which may self correct or it will create a new timeline or an alternate dimension, if you want to think of it like that. So this device may have been acquired by the White Hat Alliance and is now being used alongside quantum computers to make the necessary corrections needed to repair the damage done by these controllers. And we see this more and more as our reality seems to make no sense and also appears to be repeating over and over again. Now, only after specific temporal effects are witnessed can the corrections be made to our timeline. And we've discussed what temporal events are, we've discussed what time is and space is in the previous videos. And when you see this all as one video, you'll understand this a lot better, I'm hoping. So slowly the people are more aware, causing more and more to become awakened, and the spells cast upon them to be, it's a waking up the people from the spells or the sleep that their consciousness is in. So the more information that is uncovered and new information is allowed to be brought forward, the less control they have. Now, as the final days become evident, the satanic forces behind these controllers will try to gather as many followers as they can for a final sacrifice for the control system of their computer matrix or whatever they're doing with their followers. But it's very funny. Every single one of these Democrat liberal people with their multicolored hair and their tattoos and their piercings are all pretty much the exact same person. Where people on the Trump side may all look the same, but they're all the ones who are vastly different. And it's a very interesting concept to think about when you look at this kind of objectively as like a third party observer. So where am I? As the final days become evident, the satanic forces behind the controllers will try to gather as many followers as they can. Now, this will force sides to be chosen, and anyone not following the word of God or Jesus Christ will be lumped in and then assimilated into the hive mind of the satanic collective. Now, this is a very important thing that connects to the black goo and the vaccines and the 5G and all that kind of stuff is all part of this satanic collective. Now, a massive choice is to be made by all individuals who all have free will and must make the choice for themselves. Everything within the Great Awakening is leading up to an event where this choice cannot be hidden any longer, and you cannot put this off. You must make the choice. Service to self, service to others, the science of Satan, or the faith of God and Jesus Christ. Each person can choose which reality they want to go to and which reality they want to be a part of. But it's getting to the point where these massive temporal events are going to force people to make the choice, I guess you could say. Choose, the red pill or the blue pill. Now, here are the schematics to this, the Alice floor, and this is all held at the Dulce base or at Area 51 or S4 as they call it. So this details how these machines work, the types of configurations they have to get the multiple outcomes, and it shows how they were created. And there are many connections to archaeological finds of how they discovered these equipment, how they found the blueprints for that, and it all connects to these Sumerian seals, which we'll get to in a minute. But there is lots of Alice in Wonderland theme going on when you enter this floor at S4. There is the rabbit with the timeline with the clock, and he's always late, he's late, and the clock is moving backwards, and lots of connections to going into the future and looking back through time to see how things went, And this is where the going forward to look back kind of moniker that the QAnon people use. And there are lots of connections between the QAnon, the time stamping of posts, when things come out, the 7 year deltas, the 5 year deltas, and things like that. So it's very interesting the connections that are made through this looking glass device and the QAnon conspiracy. So here's a 3D rendering of this object, and it uses different types of gases rotating different types of magnetic fields in order to have this chain reaction occur that causes these images to be presented. So, discovering the plans for the looking glass device, this device or the blueprints for this device were discovered by understanding these Sumerian seals. And the Sumerians, I believe, were the ones who talked about the Anunnaki and the 12th planet Nibiru and all this kind of stuff, which we now see as being not what it's most likely a deception to lure people away from the truth instead of understanding how all of the historical record that we know has been changed and augmented in order to hide this mud flood and Tartaria and all these mud fossils and all this stuff that connects. When they're telling you X, Y, and Z, they themselves might not know about the A, B, and C that came before it. But now that we're discovering all these things, the truth of what's going on is starting to focus a little bit better. So they found these Sumerian seals somewhere underground. And if we understand when they're looking through Egypt, they're digging down 5, 10 feet. And we now know that this mud flood covered the entire world with up to 20 to 30 feet of mud. So they're looking in the top layers. But when you start excavating these pyramids and these archaeological sites, you find these specific rounded seals. You take these seals in clay and you roll them, and it shows this type of etching, I guess. The etching is then used when they decode it to find these schematics and blueprints of how to build this looking glass device. So, if you're doing your own research, you type in Sumerian seals and it'll come up with all these different types of, rolled out pictures and images and drawings and schematics and all kinds of things that they found. Now, when understanding this, we understand differently because they are telling you that they found out how to build this machine from these seals. And it's like finding the blueprints to a car or something. Did they find out how to build a car, or did they just find here are these imprints and they found where the location of these things were, where they then went into the pyramids or wherever they went, found these devices hidden? So it could be a little of both, and this is why multiple governments and nations would have multiple devices, and all of the devices will then tell you the exact same results. Possibly. I don't know. It's just something to kind of think about. So it's very odd. They found a bunch of these seals. They roll them all out and they tell all these pictures. So there must have been some application of why they're building these round seals and rolling them into clay. Very interesting stuff. I don't know. But you can see how they could decode the writing and the manuscripts and understanding who the people in the etchings are, what the symbols mean, and how to interpret them through these ancient depictions or whatever. And it kind of connects to like the Indiana Jones movie where these Nazis are looking for all these religious artifacts and the Ark of the Covenant and the Grail and things like that. when they're looking for all these things, they could find multiple of these, roll them out, find different things, understanding what they mean and what they say, and developing all this type of crazy technology that was then brought to the U.S. and NATO countries during Operation Paperclip, where they're then doing this Philadelphia experiment, these Montauk experiments, and developing this looking glass device and things like that. Very interesting stuff. You could kind of try to interpret what they're looking at here and what they're trying to depict. But they have found hundreds of these roles, and they've probably only made a very small percentage of them available for the public to see. So, what other secrets were learned? Were these Sumerian seals used to create technology during the Philadelphia experiment or even the Montauk Project? What other hidden technology may exist in current projects that are hidden from the general public? We know this technology had to have existed in the old world by the finding of the seals. So the technology had to exist if they're making a printout with these seals that you would roll in the clay, revealing the technical ways of building these machines and devices. So this just adds to this old world that's buried under the mud, was way advanced, and something happened where all of the descendants were wiped out and all of the people are gone. And where did the people go? Are there multiple bodies and massive bodies and stuff underneath the sand? It appears yes there is, and we'll get to that in a minute. But we know something massive happened. We just don't know how, we don't know why, and we do not know when exactly. But the more we look into it, the more we are kind of whittling down the timeline to figure out where this happened, how it happened, and why did this happen, and why does nobody know about it. It's very interesting. So everything does connect when you find the correct pieces and learn to interpret the clues that have been left behind by these old world people. Now, questions about Looking Glass. Did these seals show the blueprints of how to build a looking glass device, or did they tell the location of how to find one of these devices, or where these devices were manufactured, or any number of things? We don't know. Likely, this connects to World War II and the biblical and historical objects the Nazis were looking for, because the Germany was established in 1871, but before that, all these nations, Germany, Spain, France, England, were all a part of Tartaria at one time, which was all a unified old world uh, settlement or colony or kingdom, if you want to think about it. So we know this Operation Paperclip installed many of these Nazis into the US and other NATO countries, where they all then get back together and figure out the how to best move civilization to get their new world order, which they have been talking about since after the Civil War, before the Civil War. They've been trying to get a one world united government under their satanic philosophies of science and things like that. And this is just more furthering the argument that all these people are working together the entire time to relocate these devices, to figure out how these devices worked. If these devices worked with free energy, how would you replicate the amount of energy you would need to turn these devices back on, possibly? We don't know, but there are connections between everything, and it's all building up to the big reveal about what is going on. So next, QAnon and the Great Awakening, plus the Trump alliance. Now, this is kind of out there, but if you've watched my video on the QAnon and the Great Awakening, it explains this a lot more, how the QAnon people will make X, Y, and Z claims. Nothing ever happens, and then 5 years later, to the day, almost to the minute, whatever they said was going to happen happens. So there's like a 5 year waiting period for these predictions to come true, and it's really out there, and it doesn't make any sense until the predictions line up years later. And it is very interesting to understand and know that this is only possible if you had this looking glass device, which looks into the probability of future events. So here is a Q post, and it says Project Looking Glass going forward in order to look back. Q. This is a big part of the QAnon and all this stuff that's going on connects with this looking glass device. And the more people look into it and do their own research, the more connections that are found. So, Project Looking Glass going forward and either to look back, Trump 2024, universal greatness, and how does all this connect? We know these stargates most likely are real. There is a connection to a lot of these devices were found in Iraq under the sand, and they are bringing them back, figuring out how they're working and using them to build more of these things. And there's other connections to the past with the Lynn Wood or the Ingersoll Lockwood and all these characters that just pop up and then are gone, and then you don't understand what's going on because it's a temporal type of thing. Now, moving forward, now I don't know what this picture is. It looks like some kind of a time machine device from a movie or something, but this is how they back engineered this technology to recreate these things. But most likely, if you don't understand it, you're going to cause the same type of catastrophic results by not understanding the technology and not understanding the people using the technology. So here's this next, this Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey. Now, this was written in 1892 or something. It's very old, but there is very something going on with Baron Trump being the future ruler of the kingdom or something. I don't know. It's very odd, but there are these connections between Trump, the old world, time travel, this Sonoro Aero Club, this Ingersoll Lockwood, and the Trump character and time travel. There are multiple coincidental things that are very odd, but the more you kind of understand this as we get towards this final event, it will all make sense during the final days, I guess. And there is, I still am going to do this big video on the Sonoro Aero Club and these anti-gravity devices and all these things which were from this old world that were then found, and then showing the numerous connections that there are between the Trump family, the Tesla experiments, the old world, and things like that, with Trump's uncle John Trump and the guy from MIT and all these kind of things that are overlooked, but the more you kind of look into it, the more bizarre and crazy they all get. So, other interesting things. Now, we've seen there is this connection to Alice in Wonderland with this the Alice room and all this stuff down the rabbit hole and all the interesting little clues that the S4 Area 51 use with this Project Looking Glass in connection to this Alice in Wonderland book. Now, other things I have found is the connections between Gulliver's Travel. And I'll get into this, but it's pretty bizarre when you understand how and what is going on here. So here's a picture. I don't remember where I got this, but it was in a book. And you open it up, and displayed on the floor, it says Gulliver's Travel, and then Through the Looking Glass. Some type of a publication company called Through the Looking Glass. Very interesting that I think I wrote about this next. Here you go. So it is my theory that when the old world was being conquered and deleted from the historical record, the controllers would have deleted all records connecting to Tartary and Tartaria. However, they may have looked material contained within children's books. By looking into these old world books, we can see the truth buried within the pages of these publications. Throughout the story of Gulliver's travel, we are told about giants, flying cities, creatures, and locations unknown to the general public, but subliminally would have been known by these controllers. And there is a lot of interesting stuff when you start digging more and more and more. So, the first is when you understand this Gulliver's travel and that the Gulliver was a ship guy, he got off course or something, or he got pulled into a dimension or something, and then he awakes on this coastline where he is this giant 100-foot tall guy. Then he leaves there and goes to another land where he is like Lilliputian size, and there are other giants bigger than him. And that connects a lot to the research we've done when we are looking into mud fossils and the fossilization of biological material, which are widespread throughout our realm. Now, you can see all these fossilized people, giants that are fossilized. Now, a lot of people will just say they're just rocks. I get it. I get it. But the more you look into this, the more you are going to find, and it will blow your mind. They don't call it the face of the mountain for no reason. It's because it's a face that's a mountain, and this mud flood takes place, and these giant titan-sized people are all drowned and they die, and then they're covered in mud where then they're fossilized, and that becomes the world that we see. So through the fossilization of biology, you see the geology of our world today. And the more you look into this, the more you will find. I'm going to do a massive other video. I've done a couple in the past about mud fossils, which you should watch, but I'm going to do a newer, more updated video about mud fossils because it really is one of the keys to understanding all of this that we are looking for. It proves that the earth is flat because these trees that would have been several miles tall would not have existed on a small ball flying through space. Same with these people. These people could not have been walking around on this ball if they were 2 miles tall or something. So, very interesting. It just proves that we do live in a realm and there are multiple realms at play here and things like that. So it's very interesting. Like, did this happen at some point in the past? Was this a was this a wide known event that they then had children's books written about it? Then someone found these children books and then wrote their name on it and said, I wrote this as a fantasy tale. We don't know, but it's very interesting understanding that the size of this guy is about the size of this guy, and it's a fossilized corpse of a person. And the more you look into this and understand the way biology works and the transition metals and the moving of the red blood to the blue blood and the oxygenation of the blood, and how when someone dies these cells are trying to normalize, and if they're buried in a mud with a salty type of water like the ocean water or something, fossilization can occur. And it's very interesting when the more we look into this and the more we find, and the people who are in charge want to tell you this is all a hoax and it's a conspiracy theory and don't look into it anymore because NASA would have told you with their space telescopes and all this deception of space and all this stuff that goes into this. So, pretty interesting. We have pictures of these giants, we have evidence that there were these giants. And once again, the more you look, the more you find. And the more you start talking about this, the more they want to shadow ban you and suppress this information because it's pretty cut and dry what is going on here. And this is what I'm trying to prove with all these videos. And it's just the more you try to talk about it, the more shadow banned you are. But we're not going to stop because we are going to win. It's just how long until we win. So next, I want to talk about this Cardiff giant, which was found, and this kind of goes into the further understanding of these mud fossils. Now it says discovered on October 16th, 1869, and it says proven a hoax, one of the greatest public deceptions in American history. Well, when you look into it, it's not a hoax. It's 100% real thing. This guy was farming. He hit this rock. He tried to dig this rock out and uncovered this massive 10.5 foot tall fossilized person in the ground. Then the Smithsonian comes in. They take this Cardiff giant away to investigate it, where then they say, "Oh, it's a hoax. No need to look into it any further." And that's where the story ends. But the more you look into this, it is real. These massive giants all are fossilized, and it's not very deep in the ground that they find these things. This thing was dug out of what, 4 foot down, 5 foot down, not very deep if you understand kind of how this works. And then if you would say this was a real discovery, and how are you going to explain how somebody was 10.5 foot tall and was gigantic? Very interesting. But if you want to look it up, look into the Cardiff giant, and it's very interesting stuff to understand how we're making these connections, and over the multiple amount of connections we make all lead to the same kind of underlying truth that we have discovered and we are showing people in these videos more and more. So that's it for this week and the Project Looking Glass. If you would like to follow me on Mud Fossil Research and Truth, Mud Fossil Truth and Research on Instagram. I just joined what's it called, Threads, I guess, which is like an Instagram Twitter. So I'm on there now posting links. So if you want to find me on Threads, I'm going to be on there more. Mud Fossil Research and Truth, Mud Fossil Truth and Research on Twitter, where the shadow banning is extremely intense and they are hiding our search results. I have people writing me saying they can't find any of my stuff, and it's just part of these games we got to continuously play. I'm on Rumble and BitChute at Modern American Gangster. You can find me on there where all these videos are uploaded to Rumble and BitChute. However, I am no longer posting to YouTube due to channel violations and active community guideline strikes, which there's no way to really navigate around. You never know what these people are going to violate your video for. It's always something different. Here is the message when I try to appeal one of the videos they've taken down and strike my account due to harmful conspiracy theories. Anything they pretty much determine is a conspiracy theory can be a conspiracy theory. Any type of speech that they hate can be labeled hate speech, and your video goes down, and they give you these community guideline strikes. So I currently have two community guideline strikes. The first one will be removed in the middle of December, and the second one not till January. So most likely I am not going to be posting until next year on my Mud Fossil Research and Truth page on YouTube. But follow me on Rumble and BitChute if you want to stay up to date on all my videos and research. I am on Gab. I am on Truth Social at Modern American Gangster. I'm going to try to start posting there more, but I'm shadow banned everywhere I go. No one finds any of my stuff. So it's very discouraging, but this is the mission that we're on. So you can find me on n1m.com. I have almost got to 150,000 plays on this site, which is pretty neat, but I don't know what's going on with half of this stuff. It doesn't really result just because you have 150,000 plays doesn't mean you're selling any music or anything like that. It's very odd how they tell you you have all this exposure, but it doesn't turn into selling more books or getting more views or sponsorships or anything like that. It's very odd how the more interactions you have, it doesn't really result in anything other than whatever they're telling you it is, I guess. I don't know. But if you'd like to get this information in a hard copy or one of my books, you can get The Great Awakening on lulu.com. The Great Awakening Unit 1, Timeline of Historical Events, which I have to update. I'm going to be updating that probably the next week or so because so many new things have to be added to our historical timeline. And then there is The Great Awakening Unit 2, Continued Points of Study. There is the ebook or digital download, or you can get the Unit 1, Unit 2 combined paperback version, which is a nice thick book that has tons of information in. It's a great coffee table book or book you can leave out where almost any point you can read about something and learn something about the reality that we're in here. Pretty interesting stuff. If you want to get a book, please do. Please watch some of my previous videos. If you're finding this video for the first time, I got lots of videos with tons of information. You should watch the Old World and the Fall of the Old World video, my demonic entities, aliens, and extraterrestrials video, DUMBs or deep underground military bunkers, bases, and black sites. Also, watch my long documentary on what really happened. All kind of talking about World War II and what really happened, why things happened the way they did, how does Operation Paperclip tie into the world we have today, and things like that. So please watch that. It's a great one. Also, my video on National Zionism, Project Bluebeam, the 5G Death Towers, and the Zombie Awakening, QAnon and the Great Awakening. All these videos are very important pieces of the puzzle, which you should kind of have a somewhat idea of what's going on here. Then there is the video from the beginning of the month on the Philadelphia experiment, which connects to this looking glass. I'm starting to release my music in videos, so you can watch that. Also, Mr. Saccavello at Madison Square Garden, and then last week's video on the Montauk Project. Now, when all these are fully released, probably next month, sometimes I'll put it together in one large version and release it so all this information is contained individually or collectively as a whole. So please like and subscribe, follow for any questions or comments. If you would like to donate, you can do so through PayPal at mudfossil124875, which is great if you can help out and you want to donate, you want to request a specific video, if you want to um, if you want to get a shout out, if you want anything like that, you can do so by on PayPal at mudfossil124875. Please donate as a friend or a family member. Please like, subscribe, follow, leave any questions or comments you might have. Please leave a thumbs up. Lets me know you guys are watching this and you enjoy it. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time with a new video.